row of the Aviator is fairly spacious. Now the driver's seat, it's funny because of the easy entry exit, it's kind of moved back a little bit, but typically there would be quite a little bit of space for my knees here. And even still, even with the seat as far back as it'll go, I still have a nice amount of space there. So I've got like 3 inches of knee space, a good amount of foot space, and up overhead, I've got about 3 inches of headroom. And one of the great things is that these seats, so the second row seats are also adjustable. So we can slide these things forwards or backwards as we need to. So if we need to create some space for that third row, we can easily do it. Now the Aviator does have 3 available choices for how this second row is going to be configured. So it's either a 6 or 7 seat configuration. This 6 seat configuration has 2 different options. So we have the option right now with no console, which is actually kind of neat. I don't really see the Aviator without the console that often, so this is kind of refreshing to see. One of the great things about having the option without the console is that it's an easy pass-through in order to get to that third row. I'm not saying it's difficult in order to have these seats fold forward, like it's a button press in order to do it, but I mean, it is nice to know at the same time that if we didn't want to have to do that, get the option without the console from the factory if you need a 6-seater, and obviously if you need a 7-seater, you can get that bench seat instead. So you do have a lot of different options and a lot of flexibility as to your seating choices and arrangements and things like that. But one of the interesting things, so we do have some cup holders there. And then when we get the console, we have a few cup holders also. And if we get the bench seat, that middle seat would also have a pull down. So we've got a few more cup holders there. But lots of different configuration options that are available. One of the great things about the Aviator is that we also do have our little shade. So that's going to be the same for that driver passenger side inside of the second row. So it is just a nice touch if things are a little bit bright. And then very similar to the styling that we saw in the front row. So we do have our nice metallic highlights there with this black finish along the door. We've got our nice leather trim with our orange stitching there also, which does make it pop. And very similar to what we saw in the first row. Second row, in order to be able to get out of the vehicle, we also do have a button there. So it's just a single button press in order to be able to open that door up. But a few other things to point out back here. Along the door, we do have a few cup holders, driver passenger side, which is nice. Behind the first row, I should say, driver passenger seat, we do have a few pockets there, so we can easily store some things. And then just behind that first row armrest, we do have a little touch screen with a series of different options that are available. So we've got our seat buttons. One of the cool things is that we do have heated seats, but also ventilated seats inside of this. Now it's going to be ventilated seats strictly on the outboard seats. So if you get the bench in the middle, that middle seat is never going to be heated. And when you get the bench seat is also locked into place. So it won't be able to slide forwards and backwards the same way that these dual captain's chair seats will. So something to think about there. But it is nice that we've got that heated ventilated seat. We've got our base climate control settings there. So people in this row can control what's going on with the climate, which is great. We've got some base audio settings, and we also do have some other settings. We can turn the display off, we can adjust the brightness and things like that. As we move down a little bit, we've got some basic vent controls. We've got 2 power points back here, so a USB and a USB-C. And then we also do have a 150 watt power inverter. So our traditional wall outlets, we can plug that in as well if we need to. But overall, like I said, styling inside of this thing is great. As I mentioned, these seats do move forwards and backwards, but we can also recline it back a little bit if we wanted to. So it's always a nice thing. Now we can also, so it's the one that we would use in order to fold this seat forward, like flat. So if we needed to store boxes and things like that, that's the one that we're gonna pull if we wanted to be able to recline this seat also. But when it's reclined back, I could probably take a nap right now. I'm exhausted. This is so nice. Not as nice as the driver and passenger seats because we've got the massage chair option, but still this is fairly nice at the same time. But overall impressions of the second row were great. Let's take a peek at the third. Now, getting into the third row is pretty straightforward. Now, if we had the option with the bench seat, we could easily push a button just along the very top in order to be able to power slide this thing forward. But because this one has the easy pass through, we could literally just walk through the back there if we needed to. I mean, I'm 6 feet tall. I can more than easily get inside of this thing if I needed to. Let's pull the seat back. So this is going to be the default position for the seat itself. So it can move back a little bit more, but realistically, that would probably be enough space for somebody who's 6 feet tall inside of this row. I'm 6 feet tall as well, and with me sitting fully upright, I've got about an inch roughly of head space directly overhead, but my head is also hitting this back part. So I typically wouldn't be sitting in the third row anyways, but if I drew the short straw, I had to sit back here, I'd be able to comfortably sit back here. And realistically, you could have two of me, so side by side, and you'd be able to comfortably sit back here. But a few things to point out. We've got some cup holders along the driver passenger side, a little storage tray along the very top. We've got some cabin control lights up along the top there also. And that's really about it. There's not too much more back here. We've got a couple hooks, so if these seats were folded down for cargo nets and things like that. But otherwise, that's the basics of the third row.